Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Team Bayayi YouTube channel. My name is afuabayayi, and I'm so excited because this is actually our first ever YouTube live. And so it's pretty exciting stuff. And what we're doing actually today is we're going to be continuing with the series, Why Homeschool? So, as many of you guys know, my husband and I, we homeschool our guest appearance. We homeschool our children, and we've always homeschooled our children. And so, how did we even come to this place of homeschooling? What led to that decision? Well, there is a couple called Michael and Abner Richardson, and they were really instrumental in my desire and intention to homeschool. And I remember it was on the back of a conversation with Abner and having met their children that I was literally just sold on the idea. And so I came home, I spoke to Fry about it, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And that was it. But I wanted to bring them on because I wanted to have a conversation with them for you guys to see what I mean in terms of just the level of inspiration that they bring to, the people within their community. And I feel quite privileged to have, developed a relationship with them, to know them. They have been so key and to our homeschooling journey. And I'm really excited to have them joining us today. So I'm going to invite them on. They are backstage. So can you hear me, guys? Can you see me?
We can.
Hey.
See
Hi, guys. I can't wait. Yeah, there you go. I was like, Michael, I can't see you. How are you? How's it going? How's it going?
We're good, thank you. Afuaba, as we say in Ghana.
For those of you who don't know, they're actually in Ghana at the moment. So they're speaking live from Ghana. And so this truly is an international live. And you guys recently moved there, right? When did you move?
You say recently, we've been here good almost a year and a half. So the
Okay.
time is going quickly. COVID brought everything to a standstill, so it feels like we came yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been here a good year and a half.
Okay,
Now.
it feels like it was recent, but it's true. I guess the whole thing with like COVID and stuff makes you feel
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Okay.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
It's been,
guys,
yeah.
yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourselves, first of all, just to introduce yourselves. I've done a little bit of talking, but give us a bit more.
Oh wow. Well,
Over to you.
he does this. He does this ladies first, so which means it takes the pressure off him.
I'm learning from my good friend Farai.
Farai taught him some manners, F. Can you hear us?
Oh, yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, before we start, we just want to say a huge thank you to you, both you and Farai, for allowing this platform to take place. We're honoured and privileged to be here. You know, you're doing a
That's
fantastic
so
job.
kind.
No, definitely. Credit where it's due. You guys are doing a fantastic job. So we just wanted to say a huge thank you. And
Just to say welcome to the viewers as well.
Yeah.
For those watching
Yes,
live and those on the
absolutely.
replay as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
So we're looking forward to.
for those of you who are watching on replay, please make sure you type in replay into the comments box so that we know who you are. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Right. Okay, excellent. So yes, no, feel free. So introductions. Well, we are Team Richardson. I am Mama Richardson, aka Abena Richardson, and to my left.
Come on.
Daddy Richardson.
Yeah, do it for the girls, F. So yeah,
Nice. Love it. And so, you guys actually homeschool your children. How old are your children, first of all?
Our children go by the ages of 10, 8, and just turned 3.
Nice. Okay. And it's 2 boys and a girl, isn't it? So it's a boy, girl, and then boy.
Yes, that's the
correct.
dynamic. Yeah.
Cool. So,
Yeah.
parents of 3 children. The eldest is 10, the youngest is 3.
Mhm.
What actually inspired your decision to homeschool? And for those of you who are watching, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the comments and we will come back to those questions. So, yeah, what inspired your decision to homeschool?
Okay, I'll start on this one. So,
Okay.
we didn't have a plan to homeschool initially. You do as you normally do, getting to 2 years old, At the time, Abena had a successful hair salon. I've been working in IT for about 20, at that time, probably about 10. And, as you do, she's just come off maternity leave. And we're thinking, Sadell was turning about 2 years old, and we were looking for schools. We were in a place that we knew was temporary at the time. But at the same time, we knew we had to get him into some of institution to start his schooling in his early years. We're looking around. We didn't have much choice, or the choices that we wanted sort of seemed out of reach to a certain extent, or were too far. So there was one option that was local to us, which we thought was a potential suit and a right fit. I remember we went there one day, we were looking around, and the principal was taking us around the school. And I remember he was like, oh, okay, in their first year, we normally teach them the alphabet, 2-letter words, and sometimes some 3-letter words. So I was like, okay. But every day we spent time with Isabel. We were there, trying to stimulate him, getting him to read and everything. So I said to him, I was like, right now my son can already go through his alphabet. He can read 2-letter words. What would you do for him? And his response didn't fill me with much confidence.
Right.
And there I was thinking to myself, I was going to pay for this. So this was a private school, moderately priced, reasonably priced. But he wasn't going to get stimulated. And what was going to happen was a lot of attention would have been poured on those who can't read and write, those whose parents probably didn't spend as much time on them. And in the evenings, in order to keep him stimulated, we'll probably have to spend time after a hard day's work doing what he probably should have done during the day. And yeah, so we were in 2 minds, we were umming and ahhing, and then Abena decided that she would homeschool. And I was like, what? You want to homeschool? Firstly, what is homeschooling? because we didn't know anybody homeschooled at the time. And secondly, I was like, are you sure you want to do this? So I said, take a week out, step out of the salon, think about what you're doing, think about how your life is going to change.
Yeah.
No more photo shoots, no more awards, and make sure you're definitely ready to do this. And I'll hand over the rest of the story to her.
And can we just backtrack a little bit, because they're being really modest, by the way, guys. So Amna's, Michael said, oh yeah, she owned a salon. No, it was an award-winning salon. I don't know if you can see the trophies in the background. It was, and I was actually one of Amna's clients. It wasn't cheap. Her services were not cheap. We're talking about levels, levels. So it wasn't just any old salon, or anything like that. So it was a really big decision to make, So over to you, Abena. What led to that decision?
Oh, the exposure. I'm as modest as they come, but yeah, thank you.
Come on, we have to be blow the trumpet. Come on,
take the compliment. No, I receive it. I embrace it.
It was levels. It was levels.
Okay, bless you, sis. Okay, so yes, homeschooling. Really interesting. We had children, and of course we discussed how we were going to raise them, how we were going to educate them, train them, and all of that, discipline them. And we met some friends along the way, I think when I was on maternity leave, and they talked about homeschooling. And I remember at the time we thought, oh my goodness, these people are crazy. Who homeschools? We were schooled, our parents were schooled, children after us, everybody's sending their children to school. And they spoke about homeschooling, and at the time we also, like Michael said, used to teach us how to read and write. So we'd actually come quite far with him. We'd been told about a program, Your Baby Can Read, and we were doing all of these exercises with him. So by the time he went to nursery, we thought, yep, they were definitely going to continue that, further what we were doing, and we would just come together as a triangle, if you like. But going to that nursery was such a letdown. And that's when we had to come back home and reassess everything. So I started doing some research on homeschooling, because Michael had given me an instruction: you have a week, go and think this through, or else we're just going to stick to the original plan. Okay. So researching it, initially I heard a first speaker talk. Her name was Nancy Campbell, and she likened us to sheep. So she said that, normally in this day and age, you find that our children are very vulnerable, very susceptible, and if you leave them, they would become victims, if you like, of their environment, because anything out there can just kind of damage them, devour them, or whatever. So she said, when you look at a sheep or a mother sheep, she would forage not so far from her child. She would ensure that the child is well clothed and all of that. And she said her father was actually a sheep shearer. So when he sheared the sheep, they would actually stand still, do whatever the sheep shearer had to do, and then they would leave. And if you look at the nature of sheep, they follow each other. So one falls into a ditch, the rest do the same, and so on and so forth. And they stay with their children until they're of an age before they let them go out to face the environment, because they know how vulnerable they are.
Right.
These days, we tend to call children kids a lot. And the father also looked after goats. And he said, when you look at a baby goat, which is a kid, their nature is completely different, in that the mother would forage away from the goat for a long period of time. And at the end of the day, just come and find out, is their child still alive? Did their child eat? And do the same thing the following day. And when you look at the nature of children today, because we address them as kids, they become really rebellious. And he said, she said, when her father also looked at the nature of goats, they did the same thing. So she mentioned that, and it resonated with me in terms of how we should approach our children, the sort of things we should say to them, how we should describe them, and so on and so forth. But how we looked after them really sort of mattered. And then I heard another speaker talk, and he was saying that don't give your children to Caesar and expect them not to come back as Romans. And that, Charlie. So then he made the analogy of your children wake up in the morning, they're given about an hour to have breakfast, if that. A lot of children these days don't have breakfast. They go to school in a uniform. They have to wait to have their lunch. They put their hands up before they speak. You can't take them out of school. When you do take them out of school, they're fugitives, because you're treated more or less like a criminal. And he just sort of likened it to an institutionalized prison. And he was like, if you do this with your children for 18 years, what are you really going to know about your children? How and where are you going to have the time to shape their worldview? Really sort of cultivate a relationship with them, establish who they are, learn their love languages, a whole load of things. So then we thought, okay, we'll give this a go. We'll get on this journey, see how it goes. And worst case scenario, if
it doesn't go well,
yeah,
the school's always there.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the foundation, the motivation of putting our children or taking our children into our home and educating them. So yeah.
So with that being the case, I mean, some people would argue or say that those are actually really quite strong reasons to, because you're not just looking at the education, you're looking at everything holistically. It runs a lot deeper, from everything that you're describing, everything that you're saying, you're thinking about the bigger picture. And so with that being the case, you started the journey, you started homeschooling. At what point did you say, right, we're just going to continue with this? We're not going to put them into school?
That's a good question.
I think that happened pretty early on.
Yeah.
Probably within the first sort of 6 months.
Yeah.
I think initially when we started, we were just foraging around for resources, watching videos, trying to get an understanding of different approaches to homeschooling. And I think as we got deeper into it, we realized that, it's okay to be an individual. It's okay to have your path. It doesn't have to fit into that 8:30 to 3:30 type model.
Yeah.
And you can tailor it for your life. And that just sort of blew my mind. It was like a firework just went off. And it's like, okay, we can work with this. And I think another thing that really let us know that we were on the right track was we didn't have to do it for the whole day. There were certain times when you could see he was ready to absorb. And when he was, you go for it. And you learn to push which buttons in him could invoke a reaction or invoke laughter or invoke fun, which means that he's learning. And there were certain days you would do the same thing, same time, the following day, and his mind was somewhere else. And when it was, it's okay. We'll put it down for now. You do something different, and we'll try again at 11 o'clock or at 12 o'clock. And when we started to get used to, we can go as fast as we need to or slow down when we need to. That for me was the moment where I realized, there's something in it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also to just add, we have a little motto at home that says every day is a school day, and education doesn't end. You're consistently evolving, you're consistently learning from each other, learning about the world. And when we started to see the results, and I think family members and friends started to see the results, we thought, well, if education doesn't end, then how does homeschooling end? It just continues. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So I think, like you say, it started off really early, and we're still on it. So yeah,
That's
still
it.
on it.
So
Yeah.
let's go back to when you started to see the results. And we've got a comment actually from Casey, and she says, yes, Abner, this is one of the reasons we homeschool. We want our children close to us.
Oh.
And, in this series that, we've been doing on the channel, speaking to different homeschooling parents, one of the
Mm,
things that is a common thread is
mm,
just the desire for, not necessarily the desire, but the awareness that homeschooling impacts the family dynamic. So it
mm,
goes beyond the education, and I think
mm,
the closeness is one of the beautiful things. But I
mm,
wanted to kind of backtrack a bit and talk about seeing the results,
mm,
because the results definitely do speak for themselves. And I remember when I first started homeschooling, I would call you all the time, Abna. And I remember I was like, Abna, I'm just getting there were a lot of people challenging the
yeah,
notion of homeschooling.
yeah.
And I said to you, like, how did you deal with it? All of, I guess, the naysayers and the skepticism, because I guess anything you do that goes against the mainstream is going to face resistance and skepticism
Mm,
and criticism. And you said to me, you know what, in time, the results will speak for themselves. And
mm,
I remember seeing that with your children. I have to say, like, meeting your children, guys, is one of the things that sold me, because they were just so confident, outspoken, and extremely advanced. And I don't
mm,
just mean academically, but just socially as well. And I was
mm,
like, hold on, this, like, what? And I came from a teaching background, so I'm around children. At that point, I'm around children all the time, so I have an idea of, okay, like, children about this age, how they, on average behave and that sort of thing. So they really stood out to me. And so I guess the next
yeah.
thing I want to ask is, how have you achieved those results? Like, I know a bit of insight into how you homeschool, but I would love for you
Mm,
to share, like, what your approaches are. But before I continue, I just wanted to say hello to everyone on Facebook as well, because we're live both on YouTube and Facebook. So hello
Hey.
everyone. I don't want you guys to feel left out, Facebook crew. So
yeah.
welcome and thank you for joining us, those of you on Facebook. But yes, so tell us a bit about your approach, and I guess how you've been able to achieve those results, because we're not just talking academically, we're talking public speaking, drama skills, we're talking sports, everything. So just give us the breakdown.
Okay, so I'll sort of touch on the education. So, is there a bit of an echo? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no, we're all right.
You can, okay.
Yeah.
Great. So, as you were sort of leading into the question, you mentioned about education. And it's a definition of education, is what sometimes people sort of separate the two. They'll separate academic from the life skills. And
Mm,
for us, we don't see a separation of the two. And we fuse the two because in real life, you don't separate. And your confidence in yourself, your ability and self esteem, all of that is encompassed in your education. How you relate to people, how you do your maths, how you do your English, you know, understanding the elements of the periodic table. All these things are just as important as each other. And what we want to do is we wanted to create a space where education wasn't too compartmentalized, but was really something that rolled from one to another. And as the older they get, they start to see the connections and the overflows and overlaps between different traditional subjects. And that way, being able to flow and seeing the connection, they too would hopefully get the inspiration to want to push themselves and their desire that bit further. So, speaking educationally, when people say education, we put as much emphasis on the academics as on their personal development
right,
as well.
right.
Yeah, yeah, no, very true, very true. Just to add to that as well, what we realized and had to put first was that our children were learning way before we decided to add the academic side. So whatever you expose them to in their environment, They were absorbing, they were learning, they were building memories, and that didn't end. That growth and development didn't end. So, as Michael said, we didn't necessarily separate it. What we wanted to do was develop them in every positive way that was needed. And we also recognized that as an individual, there were four compartments. They were mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And that is all encompassing. And that's where we also adapted to the it takes a village to raise a child, because we understood that when you have your children, it's yes, you are the primary life givers, if you like, but it's the community that raises the child. So homeschooling allowed us to be selective in the people that we exposed ourselves to really build up our children to who they are. And I think lastly, there was the beauty about homeschooling as well is that your children also teach you a lot. And I remember we did actually take our son to a childminder, and I was doing it for a while when I was still at the salon. And one day we were going, he was about 2 years old, and he said to me, he just stopped me in his tracks. He said to me, Mummy, you know what? Chickens don't give the children to dogs to raise. So why are you sending me to somebody else to be looked after? And that struck me. Seriously, I will never, I tell everybody this story. It struck me like lightning. Like, I don't get it. It made me sit down and question why I was doing everything, like the whole day work just wasn't the same. So it was all of those things that, in the mix just made us decide, right, this is going to be our approach. This is going to be our direction. And then as the years go on, we would just evolve. So yeah, that's to just add a bit more to what Michael said. Yeah.
So, in terms of things like, give us an idea of the type of things that you did, you would say early. And when I say early, earlier than, I guess, the average, and why? Because one of the things that I've learned from you, and this is, I guess, what I'm trying to draw out of you as well, is that, when we see, that, okay, children by a certain age should be doing such and such, we shouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily be limited by that,
Yeah.
and so in terms of throwing them into things that, might be perceived as too advanced or too far out of reach for them, but, doing that and actually seeing results. Can you give examples of where you've done that?
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, I think one of our approaches has always been from the very early age, the children understand the basics of right and wrong. And, sometimes they'll do something and they'll turn around and they'll give that sheepish look. They don't know how to say sorry, but they're looking down, almost head down, but you haven't taught them that. And we've realized from there, they understand from a very early age
They
some
have a
very
conscience.
simple
Yeah.
and basic concepts. And what tends to happen is we tend to wait until we start to see that they're verbalizing it before we start acting, saying, okay, they have a clear understanding of this, so from now on, I'm going to teach them this. But they probably understood the basics of that a month or two before, but couldn't verbalize it in a way in which you understood. So what we did, we just said, you know what, we're going to stretch these children, see how much they truly understand.
That was actually stretching us because they understood. It's just us that had to catch up with them, right? So yeah.
And put it in a way in which they understood.
Yeah.
So it's an analogy I'll give is if you tell a child, okay, you know what, today we're going to swim 5 meters. And every day you jump into the swimming pool and you just swim 5 meters, even though it's a 10-meter pool, they'll only be able to swim 5 meters. But we said, you know what, we're going to put you in mentally, we're going to put you in a pool and tell you to swim 10 meters. And then tomorrow, just when you get comfortable with 10 meters, we're going to try 15. Until the point that we realize that, okay, he's about to sink, and then we'll pull it back a bit and go back to 45 minutes. So really looking at the child, seeing, okay, we'll start with flashcards, we'll start with languages, we'll clap as we're doing our words, we'll do actions, and we'll mix different languages in there. And then we'll see, how much are they comprehending? How much can they do? How much are they responding back? And all these things, and we just keep building. And each day we're stretching you, we're pushing that boundary that little bit further. So yeah, that was that initial approach, and just to see, because again, we're not limited by you have to sit and wait until all 30 children are ready to move on, or the syllabus says so. Right now, it's me and you, and it's an elastic band. Let's see how much you'll stretch. If it's too much, we go back a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, you did ask for ages, so I was just going to sort of add a little bit to what Michael was saying. Sorry, yeah. So in terms of ages, we made a very sort of conscious decision. Michael did. I came along board afterwards. You have to give credit where it's due. Yay! We made a decision to teach the children our mother tongue before anything else, because we'd seen everybody else do it. We'd seen the Asians do it, Italians do it, Chinese do it. And we just thought, why do we always choose not to do it? And what does it do for the mind? How does it stimulate the mind of a child? Because we heard the other results, from everybody else, how children can compartmentalize and do all sorts. So we used to speak to the children in just Tree, but we started reading with them from the age of about 3 months. And then we found when they got to the age of about 8 months, they could actually recognize words in both languages. So when it came time for them to verbalize it, they could speak to you, they started speaking to you in the alternate languages. And even further to that, when they were about a year or two, if they met, I don't know how they did this, but if they met someone, they could tell whether or not they could speak English or whether or not they could speak Tree. So they would speak exclusively in one language or the other. And that's when we realized that we're actually underestimating these children. So, yeah. So then, like Michael said, the accountability was a big thing. Like, we have family meetings all the time. If you do something wrong, after you've been disciplined, you have to come back and apologize to the family because we made an agreement and you broke up the unit, so to say. Yeah. We use a lot of proverbs as well. So after a while, when the proverbs are understood, sorry if I'm just hearing a bit of an echo. I'm not sure, is that on our side? Yeah.
I'm not sure. Can you guys hear the echo in the? Put it in the comments box.
Okay.
But we'll continue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So accountability. Sorry, sis.
Can you still hear it?
We can't.
It's gone down on this side.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there is an echo. Okay. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's okay now on our side. Maybe just
okay. I think it's gone.
Okay.
All right. Is it still there? Oh. Okay. Well, let's continue, and then I think Farai's coming to try and help.
Oh, yay! Superman saves the day.
So yeah, continue, please.
Sorry, say that again, eh?
No, if you could continue.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Right, yeah. So accountability was one of the other things that, like I was saying, we did a lot. And then also certain things that children would be exposed to. We realized that whether our children liked it or not, they were being exposed to certain things that we would have to explain to them, or at a certain point, we just didn't want the explanation to come from elsewhere. So we tried to find ways that would be child appropriate to be able to express and explain that. But Michael's just nudged me and said that's coming later on, so I'm not going to rush. Just going to wait. So yeah.
Fair enough. Yes. Yeah. And so in terms of the children, and let me just come back on. In terms of the children, one of the things that I noticed with your children, okay, they can't hear the echo anymore. Wonderful. One of the things that I noticed about your children, and I learned this from you, is that, for example, if there was something happening, let's say, for example, it's swimming or music or what have you, and it was for a certain age group, you would always be like, okay, but let's at least put my child in. Let's see how he does or she does. And then whether or not they cut will go from there. And that's actually something that I learned from you, because I found then that you were giving your children lots of opportunities that wouldn't necessarily be presented to them, just because of that they say that vim, like that
yeah, that mama bear vim. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And another thing that I noticed, like for example, you would have the children do public speaking at weddings and other occasions and so on. So I think all of these things really developed their confidence. And one of the things that I've picked up from the children is that they are very confident around adults. And there's, and I wonder how you kind of get the balance with that, because culturally, especially as Africans, one of the, we're always like, oh, auntie, uncle, and there is that kind of like, oh, senior, that type of thing. And but you still instill those cultural values of respecting your elders, and at the same time, your children are very confident around adults. They're very much able to articulate, express themselves, and engage in conversations. How have you been able to do that, do you reckon?
For us, there's a saying in Chi, which is like "Bibia wa nimre," which is that everything has its time.
Right.
And there's a time for children to be children. There's a time for children to speak to adults. There's a time when children need to respect adult spaces and disappear. And it's about giving them the exposure in all of those environments, explaining to them what's expected of them in those environments, so that with preparation and with exposure, they can hopefully flourish in those situations. And it's a process. It starts with sometimes give them that push where they don't believe they can do it, and then they have that good mental memory of, oh, yeah, well, I did that last time, and this time we're going to go a little bit further. We're going to try something different, and also it's sometimes just practical steps. Really, it's about getting them to engage. So what we used to do, one practical thing we did was, you're going to speak to uncle and auntie today, and you're going to find out what their name is, how their day was, and so on. So it gets them to engage with people who they sometimes in normal cultural circles will just say hello to the children and that's it. But
Right.
we try to get them to, develop conversational skills with people across the range spectrum. So that's like one thing that we did with them to help build.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's also just being very intentional about what you want the children to become. What we do, well, I think what we did as homeschoolers, which we didn't start with in the beginning, was that we started with the end goal in sight and then worked our way back. Yeah, so then we worked our way back to ensure that we were ticking all the boxes. And one of the things about the personal development, I mean, we really tried not to be too ageist in this house, because again, there's another proverb in Tree that says that not all wisdom and intelligence is in one person's mind. So when we have family discussions, we ensure that every child is contributing. And even if it doesn't necessarily, if it's not relatable at the time, you're very thankful for their contribution, and it gives them a sense of inclusion and a sense of value. But yeah, but then going back to the intentionality, what we did in the beginning was we used to get the children to call their aunties and uncles every kind of week. So the call would be expected, or we'd get their aunties and uncles to call them. And then we'd get them to ask them, how was your day? What did you do? And when we got them to do this in person, sometimes you'd have children where you'd want them to maintain eye contact, body language, and all of that. So to make it age appropriate, you'd go up and you'd speak to uncle, and then you'd have your head down and you wouldn't be looking, and all of that. So you'd get them to do it a few times, but every time they got it right and they were giving that uncle or auntie that eye contact, and they asked the question. Sometimes it's not even how was your day, it was how your day was, whatever. But you would give them as much encouragement and you tell them you're so proud of them. They would come away and they'd say to you, Mommy, Daddy, did I do it right? Did I do it right? And you're like, yeah, that was really good. Next time you go out, you ask two people. You ask two people in a crowd. We get them to do that in supermarkets. They go to the shops. Then when you get, like you go to Sainsbury's, you go to pay, go and speak to the cashier, ask her how her day is. Is she tired? When did she come off work? All of that kind of thing. And then as they developed, we started reading psychological books. Like right now, psychology is something that we're doing, but it's that social awareness. Look at people, look at their body language when you're talking, listen to how they're, what they're saying, their tone. Do they have their arms crossed? This is something that we incorporated when the children were probably about 5 or 6. So now they like a lot of detective stuff, because they're always like looking
Trying
at
to piece together.
Yeah, definitely. And our children are amazing. When I say our children are amazing, I don't talk about just our children in the community in general. And if we can do this with our children, if we can learn from other parents about what they're doing, which is why it would be so exciting to learn about what everybody else that's listening is doing. It comes together as a community, and it's a power force. It really is, because Rome wasn't built in a day. It's stage by stage, bit by bit. But they get to that place and boom, people think, oh, they just became like that overnight. But it's what we put in piece by piece, almost like a jigsaw puzzle. And before
Yeah.
you know it, it's all encompassing. So, yeah.
And it's interesting that you should say that because I watched a documentary,
Mhm.
and am I echoing, by the way?
No,
No.
we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I watched a documentary, and they followed three young men,
Yeah.
working class, middle class,
Yeah.
and they were three different races as well: white, Asian, and black.
Wow.
And the middle class gentleman was a white man,
Hmm.
and the working class gentlemen were black and Asian. And
Hmm.
one of the things that they note, and so what they did was they followed them from university onwards and how they were able to access job opportunities and that sort of thing. And they
Okay.
found that the middle class young man had confidence. And that
Hmm.
confidence opened doors for him that he wasn't really necessarily qualified for.
Hmm.
And I remember the Asian young man was extremely intelligent. He got the first class degree, but he lacked confidence. And so, for example, when he went for interviews, as much as on paper he was brilliant, his mind was brilliant, he wasn't able to express and articulate himself well enough to be able to land certain jobs. So, what he then went on to do was to complete a master's because he was thinking, okay, I just need to get more qualifications and hopefully that's going to open doors for me. And the gentleman who was doing the program, he said, it's really sad because really, rather than do that, he could have taken that money and invested it in public speaking courses or and classes or that sort of thing to build up his confidence. And so he kind of sat back and he wanted to evaluate the whole thing. And he was saying it's really interesting because in middle class homes, from a young age, children are taught that their opinions are validated. They go to the GP surgery and, the doctor's asking what's wrong. And the parents said, well, tell the doctor what's wrong.
Hmm.
It's not the parents speaking on their behalf. They're
Hmm.
involved in conversations. And so
Hmm.
they're able to learn and it builds such confidence in them. Whereas culturally, especially, and I know this can be very much the case in certain African homes, it's like
Yeah.
adults are speaking, go somewhere. And I know that there's sometimes a place for that, absolutely. Because not every conversation is for the child, but at the same time, what can they learn from those opportunities that are being presented? So what you're saying, it just really reminded me of that documentary. I'm like, oh my gosh, there are such parallels there. And I can definitely
Hmm.
attest the fact that your children are extremely confident and eloquent as well, when they
Hmm.
express themselves. So, yeah, definitely the results are speaking for themselves. The results are speaking. And so, in terms of the homeschooling, what
Hmm.
is the vision? Where are you going with this? Like, what do you want to? What are you planning to homeschool until just for their primary school education and then they go to secondary school afterwards? What is it that you want to do?
Okay.
So,
Take
yeah, for us, the vision is sort of straightforward. Part of it is to homeschool and to create that. Sorry, I'm just having a bit of an echo on this side. To create that child who understands the world in which they live in, to give them the independent tools it takes to learn and to unlearn whatever they need to learn in life. And where that takes them is really down to them. It's our place to give them opportunities, to give them a taste of different things along that way, along that journey, for them to get a taste of, is this what I want to do? And if it is something you want to do, then we'll push you in that direction. So if you decide you want to be a medical doctor, you have to go and get certain qualifications. That being the case, we're going to look into it and we're going to push you down that route. If somebody wants to be a business person or an actor or something else, what do you need to get exposure to that? And we're going to focus and push you in that direction. But ultimately, we want to create independent learners. I want to be able to give them any topic for them to go away, research, be able to validate it, understand it, and be able to teach it back to me. And that's what life will be in the next. That's where we see life for the next generation, is to be able to learn and unlearn quickly. You know, information technology and IT has changed the world. You know, you had big companies who ran the world, but small opportunities came through technology, which allowed people to make the most of things. And that's the era we're coming into. And you know, the world is their oyster. Information is everywhere, but it's having that skill to be able to tap into it when you need to get the end results that you have in mind.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also, just to add to that, when we started, like we said, we started with the end goal in sight. And you spoke about the middle class young man who, was opinionated and he had all the confidence in the world. Sometimes we want our children to be confident. We want them to be able to exude a sense of, self esteem, knowing yourself, and all of that. However, we as parents also have to set the example. So the beauty of homeschool is we're developing just as much as they are. And in order for them to be able to do that, we also have to come out of our comfort zone. If you look at a middle class person who has opportunities available to them because of the environment that they're born in, as a homeschooler, you can also look for those opportunities. And in that, I'll give an example. I remember our oldest son is really keen on science, just any science. Give him physics, biology, he's just really keen on it. And there was a surgeon that came to the house to do our youngest son's circumcision. So they got talking, and he was telling him all about the different parts of the body and da da da. And this doctor really talked to him. So he was like, "Oh, you can come and do." We were not long about to leave to come to Ghana. So he was like, "Oh, you can come and do some work experience at my clinic." He had a clinic as well on Harley Street. If you want, it's fine. You can start off at reception, and then you can move on and do other things. But we're just those kinds of parents that try to really seek opportunity. So wherever we go, if we meet a businessman, we're trying to seek that opportunity for that child to go and do that work experience. And again, we're not ageist. So as long as it's in an environment where they can be trusted, protected, and feel secured, we can go with them when things feel better or feel like you can let go of them a little bit more. They can go alone and do it themselves. But what it is they're acquiring all these life skills that if they were at school, it wouldn't be open to them, that it wouldn't be available to them. And also just developing in their business ideas. Who says you have to sit back and wait? This was our mindset, right? This was, when we were growing up, this was what you do. You wait, you grow, you start a business. But like Michael was saying, the opportunities are absolutely endless. So there are things now that you see homeschool children doing that you think, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, it doesn't end. It doesn't end. It just continues and it just keeps going. There's going to be a time where they won't need us anymore, but they'll still be learning. They'll still be homeschooling. So yeah.
And just to add a final thing in terms of the confidence, in order to give your children confidence, they need to know who they are. And that's through their language, through their culture, through their heritage. So whether you live in the UK, the US, wherever you are, or even on the continent, you need to know about who you are, where you're coming from, and your journey to where you are in that particular point in time. If you have a clear understanding of those things, very little in life will be able to shake you. And that's one of the core things that we put into our homeschooling journey as well. And it's paramount. And the other things are add on to that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. And so, in terms of schools, what are your views about schools and the purpose of schools and how that compares to the experience of homeschooling?
I think there's a place for everything. I think parents have a decision to make, and based on their circumstances, of course, there's so many things that go into the decisions that parents make and why they make them. There's a reason why we have chosen to home educate our children, and for us, this is what is working. But for other parents, if schools are what they feel is working for their children, then by all means, we all have a different approach and a different way of, just looking at things, different perspectives, opinions, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't make ours right. and it doesn't make theirs wrong. It just means that what we're doing now is something that works for the family, the community, and if we can share it and help another family along, then by all means,
We're happy to do so.
we're happy to do that. Yeah.
Oh, oh, I love that. And I think as well, in terms of what you were saying about the opportunities to become business owners and that sort of thing, I think that's wonderful because I guess when I think about school, um, I think about the fact that we're not necessarily teaching children in schools to write business plans. We're teaching them to write CVs, and
Mm,
so in that respect, I think it's wonderful that you're able to introduce alternative ideas and options from such an early stage. Do you see what I mean? And I don't know
yeah.
if maybe perhaps you guys are, do you think that because you already were in business, you already had that kind of mindset, and that influenced that in any way? Do you think that's where that came from?
No, I think personally, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and it may have been the route that we took slightly earlier. Michael and I both didn't go to university, and a lot of our friends did. So we found that at a time when a lot of our friends had finished university, were then going to start out in the career field, start to find, like a place to live, get on the property ladder. We already had a foothold, and so from there we kept going up. And what happened was when you were able to think on your feet and, like you say, not necessarily write a CV or use the skills that were given to you to write a CV when you were in school, when that's not something you're using, but you're actually accepting CVs, you realize that thinking on your feet and understanding how and the way the world works to your advantage. So to develop that, we then instill that, I guess, in our children. And you realize that there are life skills that, like you say, aren't taught in schools, like the emergencies, the debt, mortgages, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, all of those things. I mean, we finished reading something like Rich Dad Poor Dad with the children a couple of months ago. And their understanding of it is absolutely amazing. I mean, they can tell you anything from stocks and shares to mortgages, and it's just all encompassing. So they then become problem solvers. Where they see a problem, they don't complain about it. They try to find a solution. They try to create. They try to invent. They try to impact the world around them. And those are the kinds of opportunities that we really wanted to just give our children. Go away, think, study, research. If you've been told this, don't just accept it. Research your way. Is it truth? Isn't it truth? Make a sound educated decision, and then move from there. So those kinds of opportunities, I guess, you're limited slightly when you're in a schooled environment, and as a parent, you have to go that extra mile to ensure that your child is getting that all-encompassed education journey, if you like. Yeah.
And just to add to that, because I came from an IT background, I remember there was a point where I had a choice between university and going into the professional IT world. And I got a good bit of advice from an uncle who said, you know what, don't just go to university because everyone's going to university. He says, look at what the job market is requesting, is demanding. So he said, stop looking at UCAS forms and study the IT magazines. So which I did. I used to buy it every week, and I'll look and I'll check and I'll see this is what they're looking for. What qualifications? So they were looking for specific professional certifications, not people coming out of university at the time when I got into IT. So with that knowledge in mind, I decided I was going to jump to the professional qualifications, which basically fast-tracked me 5 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And then I realized I was getting ready to just go to university, almost for going to university's sake, without fully understanding what I was trying to get into. So with that, it allowed me to realize that there isn't a one track for all, but jump to whichever track would suit you in order to get ahead.
Definitely. And also, just to add to that, we discovered some years ago that a lot of the Ivy League universities offer courses at a fraction of the price. So you're not ending your education in debt. And that's something that we learned along the way. So you don't have a lot to pay afterwards. You could do a lot of it online.
What do you mean, as in online?
Yes. Yeah, so you can do a lot of it online. You don't have to go and pay the foreign fees and all of that. So that's something that, parents could really use to their advantage, and just do some research and just do your due diligence. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
no, I love that. And so, as we come to a close, I wanted to go back to a conversation that we had, Abner, where you were saying that, um, you're in terms of like end result, because in the beginning of the conversation, you talked about thinking of the end goal and working backwards. And so you were said, I remember one time we spoke and you said you want to give your children the ability to grow their own foods and so
Mhm.
certain key things to help them in life. Could you, I don't know if you remember that conversation, could you
Yeah.
elaborate on that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So we looked at the 5 skills that you would need in order to be able to survive, like just as survival. One was agriculture, another one was sewing your own food, well, sewing your own clothes. Another one was robotics, understanding what would keep you warm and, things of that nature. I can't remember the other two. I did business studies with the children not so long ago. But yeah, so there's 5 core life skills. And yeah, we incorporated that. We started a little tomato farm when we came over. We're growing a few other things. What else? That dad does robotics with them, so that's something that really helps. There was a lady actually. This is me. Everywhere I go, I'm trying to find friends. So we went to. I used to get my clothes done by a guy in Deptford, and his assistant actually was the one teaching the children how to sew. But when we came here, we haven't actually found anyone yet, so we will continue. And Inshira does have a sewing machine coming, but that's not just for Inshira, that's for everybody in the house. So yeah, there's just those skills where tomorrow, you not only use that to your benefit, but you could also make a business from it. Sew something, put your name on it, create a brand, start selling it. All of that, and have different sectors of that brand where you're doing so many different things, but it's just thinking creatively. So yeah, I think that was the motive behind that one. Yeah.
And would you reckon that the children will do GCSEs?
Yeah, they're actually doing GCSEs now.
Mm.
So
So
You hear that,
our
guys? They're
approach,
doing. How old are
yeah.
they? Remind us,
oh
remind
god.
us, remind us. Because one of the things as well, I've noticed like, and again, Abner's, I feel like she can be very humble. And so I've noticed like you don't like to show off your children too much. But like, so what we'll do is we'll show them off for you. So
Oh
because
my
like
goodness, child, please.
like let's back, how old are they again? 10 and
Yes, an
what?
8,
Hey,
And
an 8.
8. Okay.
Yeah.
10 and 8. And they do so, but I say that to make the point that we there's no limits. Like we shouldn't limit the children. Do you know what I mean? Um yeah, sorry. So continue to talk about the fact that they're doing their GCSEs.
yeah. So I mean, for us, what we want to do is really just get them exposed to as much stuff as possible. And one likes maths more, one likes science more. One's a keen writer, and we just want to allow them to get drawn to the skills that they are drawn to. And if they're ready or are ready for that focus on that thing for that particular period in time, we'll do so. And we'll be like, you know what? You don't have to wait until you're 15, 16. If you're 10 and you think you're ready to do it, for the next year or two, we'll do what it takes. Why? Because we're not restricted, we're not limited. And just to know that there's no boundary to any of these things. And you can do them as and when you're ready. So we forever have that on the back of their minds. We don't believe that they're too young to understand simple business concepts. So we get it to them and we deliver it to them. We have this big GCSE textbook, which you literally just work through. And if it's something that's a challenge, then mom and dad will explain it in a simpler way for them, or we will use analogies, or we'll listen to the news, and there are different ways to break down information. And it's just really about making it accessible to them, so they never feel like this is ever too much. I remember once they had a music book, and she looked at the notes. She was like, "These notes, I've never seen these notes before." And the music teacher was like, "It doesn't matter if you've seen them or not. They're just musical notes." And at the end of that musical session, she was like, "Oh yeah, now I can play it.
The penny drop.
And once it drops in one aspect in music, then it applies in maths, it applies in English, it applies across the board, and then they're ready to go. And then you're just there, providing a base for them and allowing their gifts to come forth.
I love that. And I keep saying we're going to close, but things are coming to me. So in terms of, because, again, and I want to stress, it's not just the academic, and you might correct me, I might not be using the right terminology here, but I mean musically as well. Like you've stretched them like musically, because I know that the children, they play the piano, right?
Yeah. So piano and clarinet.
Piano and clarinet, right? And at the same time, sports, they're both very, very good swimmers as well. Is it just swimming and gymnastics, I think, as well?
Yeah.
But
So we
again,
do a few activities, different activities with them. Some for a season or two. They've done capoeira, gymnastics, and a few things. Yeah. So we mix it up.
Yeah. And again, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, it's just building them up holistically. It's just having so many different facets. It's interesting because when we met, was it head of psychology at, you see, yeah. And if somebody had said to me, FA was going to be like this big events coordinator that was doing this, like who would have known you had those skills hidden away? But it's all the different facets to what makes FIA. And it's encouraging for your children to see, but then we realize that we're also raising another village, another generation of the village that have so many different skills. They're multifaceted. And if so, why not explore it? You're only going to bring about the fruition and the wholesomeness, and for them to also be able to pass that on when it comes time for them to have children. So that's what, in a sense, we try to do. If one expresses keenness in baking, in sewing, in swimming, in whatever, let's explore it. And when we do explore it, it's not just for Christmas. There's going to come a time when you don't necessarily want to do it. Like recently, our daughter, she just kept having this. She was like, "Oh, I don't want to do piano anymore. Why don't you want to do it?" "I don't know. I don't really like it. I don't want to do it." So I said to her, "Look, when you start something, you try to push yourself, apply that determination, perseverance, break through what it is that you're struggling with, and we'll keep going." So she did that. She came to me last week. She said, "Mommy, I'm so grateful that you actually pushed me to do the piano, because now, like, she hasn't surpassed her brother, but she's on par and she's doing so well." So it's, and we get that, even as adults, sometimes you just feel like you want to give up, like, I don't want to do this anymore. But as parents, we see the potential in our children. And because we've been children before, we've got the experience of, I just want to give up because it's just not working, is it? I want to try something else.
Yeah.
But it's not so much what they're doing, it's the mindset. So once they have the right mindset, they can focus and achieve in absolutely anything. Once you break the barrier of the mind, the battlefield of the mind, you can absolutely achieve anything. So it's just building that in them to a point where they wouldn't even need us to what's the word? Encourage them anymore. Like, they'll be able to do it. And to be honest, now, because everybody's accountable in the house, I was saying this afternoon, we have a yearly family review. So every year we write down what all our goals are, for each other, and then we just have it up. And they've been at me, "Mommy, you said you were going to learn how to swim, da, da, da." And today I just felt so guilty. I was like, you know what, now is the time. I need to just get out there and do it. So it's a life cycle, what can I say? But it's continuous and it's forever evolving. So we're getting there.
I love the idea of the family meetings and where everyone is contributing. I'm definitely going to implement that. And I think and again, I think, because in psychology we look at this whole idea of nature versus nurture. And are you born just gifted and talented or intelligent, or is it something that can be nurtured? And I think one of the things that your the conversation with you has highlighted is that it's about nurturing. It's about finding out those gifts and drawing them out by stretching, by challenging, by presenting opportunities. All of these things. I think it's all of that. And and they are incredibly impressive children. Like, as I said, guys, they're totally being modest and humble here. Like, we're talking about like what level, what grades, because we have the same piano teacher for Katachi. you guys used to before you moved to Ghana.
Oh yeah.
But I remember she was saying that like Asida was like on grade, what was it again? Grade,
He's doing his grade 5.
yeah,
Yeah.
like at 10. And but you know what? What that did was that put into me this mindset that you know what? It's possible.
It
It's
is.
really
You
it's
know
possible.
what?
And it really
Yeah.
just and that's one of the things that's the key thing I've learned from you guys as a couple, that
Yeah.
anything's possible. We should not limit our children. You know,
Yeah.
why does it have to be that, oh, they do grade 5 at such and such age?
Yeah.
Anything's possible. That is the key thing I've learned from you. Sorry, go on. What were you going to say?
Sorry, what was I going to say? Right, talking about piano. So, our son, he doesn't actually like to sit and read notes and play all the time. He doesn't, that's something that it becomes a bit monotonous after a while. So, we had to find out what it was about the piano that we could use to kind of encourage him. And we realized that he really likes jazz. So, a lot of the, the songs that they learn is like classical and it's Beethoven or Bach or whatever. He really likes jazz. So, when that was incorporated into his piano playing, he just flew. So I just say that to say, yeah, to say, whatever your children's interests are, even if you may not, our culture, there's a lot of things that we don't necessarily agree that, is good for you or is deemed as socially acceptable or impressive. If that's if that's the love of the child or something that they really have a passion about, if you incorporate that in their life's journey, you'll be surprised as to how well they do in just other things.
Results.
Yeah, the results will just speak for themselves. So
I love
yeah.
that. And I guess a perfect example of things that aren't socially acceptable or the norm is like both of the children were doing, all of them were doing gymnastics at one
Yeah.
point. And gymnastics is typically a female sport. But I remember you were saying to me, Abner, well, actually, it really helps to develop your agility and your core strength. And I was like, oh, okay, right, gymnastics. Let's look for, you know. I'm there searching for gymnastics, like, right? Yeah. And you were like, yeah, and that helps with all sports. And I was like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna do that too. But this
Yeah,
is it. So, and they
yeah.
thrived with it. They did really well, right?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. And it just serves as a foundation as a sport. So once they've got the agility, they've got the core, they've built up their core muscles, they can go and do absolutely any other sport. They can incorporate football or whatever. And it doesn't have to start off as at gymnastics. If you've got a child that's really gifted in football or whatever it may be, just encourage them. And when you go there, please don't go and sit in the back on your phone or having that conversation with your friend. You tell your child,
Be one of those screaming mothers and go, "Ah!"
the next step is to learn how to swim. Though I promise, it's not just the swimming. That's half of it. But just really like engage with their teachers, tell them how proud you are of them, and so on and so forth. And they will just thrive. They will really thrive. Yeah.
Well, you're getting so much love in the comments.
Oh.
You have had so much love. This Blissful Living has said, wow, this is indeed the full package. Lorraine Ajuman says, well done, guys. The Diaspora channel, great job, guys. I should really put them up. So, Diaspora, a great job, guys. Lorraine Ajuman, well done, guys. This is indeed the full package. Our guest is so inspiring. Well done. Louise has said that she loved this, loved the parents. And so you have, you've been getting, and that, you're very loved as a couple. So you've been getting a lot of love in the comments. And so, yes, I think you've given us so many different nuggets. And Amma has said that she's been totally inspired. So thank you so much. And I know that many people are going to watch it on replay, and there are people watching on Facebook. And so, I've always said, I think that homeschooling is like one of the best kept secrets in terms of just how amazing an opportunity it is. And one of my desires, I guess, for this series was to really just put it out there. Like if you know that something is good, you don't keep it,
Keep it to yourself.
necessarily. Yeah. You're like, guys, and so just to give people food for thought.
Yeah.
Food for thought. But one of the things that I really valued about this series as well is that there are parents who, for whatever reason, they're not in a position to homeschool right now, or they've decided not to, but they've said that they still learned so much that they've applied, when
Yeah.
it comes to parenting. And I feel like you guys have really covered that as well, just the parenting aspect of it. So thank you so much from Team Bayayi. Really, really appreciate your time.
It was pretty good.
Hey, right. Western and
So thank you so much. And I'm gonna what time is it in Ghana at the moment?
Same time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, so thank you so much for honoring this invitation. As I said, I'm really, really grateful for our friendship, our relationship, because you guys inspired me to homeschool, and I've never regretted that decision. I think it was one of the best decisions we've ever made. So thank you.
Wow.
Cool. Thank you. And thank you for the
We have to
opportunity.
say, you guys make an impressive couple. We see the teamwork going on. We see if you're doing all the talking and Farah just slaving away.
Behind the computer.
Behind
Video
the scenes,
I'm
yeah,
telling
100%.
Where's my video?
Yeah.
I get the same thing. I get the same thing over here.
I'll tell you. And so just to close, guys, they actually have a YouTube channel. So if you go on to Destination Africa, in fact, tell us a little bit about Destination Africa, because we actually went to their Saturday school for a long time before they shut down and decided to relocate to Ghana. But they have an organization called Destination Africa. They have a YouTube channel. I'm not sure. Okay, when you talk for a bit, tell us what it is on YouTube, and they're also on Instagram. So tell us a bit about that before we go.
Okay, so Destination Africa, the group, was actually started out of our children not being able to really communicate with other children like them in their community through their own language, knowing their own history, their culture, their heritage, and of course, what sort of a legacy were they going to pass on? And we realized that if our children, the other day my daughter said, they are learners of today and leaders of tomorrow. And if our future rested on our children's shoulders, then what were we really doing to change the fact that our children, when they got to a certain age, had an identity crisis because they didn't really know who they were? So we decided to start these classes to instill, we've got an ethos, which is patience, unity, and respect. And that was to instill these 3 values in them so they would be dependent on each other, and also just develop that trust so that when they're older, also for our economics in the community, they would spend money with one another before they took it out of the community. But intrinsically, that all starts with the language aspect, understanding that you are each other's keeper and you have to look out for one another. So we started that, and we used to incorporate different things like the law, entrepreneurship, what else we've done? Significant figures, so teaching them like historians who look like them, who've invented. There's just so many, and we've actually learned so much from it. So we opened it up since we came to Ghana, COVID being COVID, and it's now gone global. It's doing really well. And we have our last open day coming up, which is completely free, so you can register your children. Perhaps, I'm not sure how they can get to the registration.
It's register.thedestinationafrica.com. But check it out. It's on our Instagram and everything else. So Richie, our mission in life is to raise our children and to inspire the next generation. And we just want to share that journey and give whoever wants to listen a push, and to say, you can do it. We stumbled upon homeschooling, and it was one of the best decisions we made. Even just as Effie said, even if you can't do it, take something away that can impact and change your children's lives. We only get one chance and one shot, one crack at the whip. And we just want to give it the best we have with the tools we have in the situations in which we have them. So that hopefully tomorrow the children will look at the sacrifice or the investment we made in them and say, Mom, Dad, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, we don't just see our children as our children. Everybody is our children. So we bring everyone into the fold. We bring the parents, we get the parents to teach, law, just all sorts. And then after, what happens then is you're establishing a real bond with your children, a real level of learning and developing, and your children see you grow and all sorts. So in the next set of Destination Africa classes, we're going to be doing cooking. We want to see, like, the fried plantain, all sorts. We'll be filming it and we'll be tasting it. It's going to be a ball. Like, I'm really looking forward to it.
Super passionate.
I am. And you know what? Destination Africa has had children come in who could barely speak. And by like week 3, they're just the most confident. And it makes me cry every time. This is how much I actually see the village's children as our children. So that's why we started it. And the channel really sort of was, I don't know, it just escalated off there.
It's just a platform to say, hey, you know what? We're doing stuff out there. Let's not just highlight the negative or whatever. Yeah. And if you're doing something good, you don't just put your good works underneath the table. You put it on top so the world can see. And YouTube is the avenue. So yeah.
Yeah. So everybody is responsible. You guys are there to train the children, so we get you to talk and inspire them and just keep them on their toes. So yeah, check out the YouTube channel. You guys would love it. Yeah. And sorry, can we say you inspired us to start the YouTube channel? So thank you. Yes.
We be inspiring each other. Come on now, come on, girl. And you know what? And I love that. I think that's the quote to end on. Our children are learners for today and leaders for tomorrow. Is that what you said?
Learners, leaders of tomorrow, but you're probably saying it better. English is not my first language, F. So yay!
learners of today, leaders for tomorrow.
Yeah. We'll stick with that one.
That's going on Instagram. Instagram. That's the quote for the evening. That's the quote for the evening.
Don't forget to write Inshura's name underneath, because she won't forgive me.
Oh, she came up with it.
Yeah, that was she. So yeah.
Come on. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We really do appreciate those of you who've given up your evening to join us live. And thank you for those of you who are going to watch on replay. If you did enjoy it, make sure that you share with somebody that you share with someone that you feel will benefit. And at the same time, if you are not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe to Team Bayayi and also to our wonderful guests at Destination Africa. Have a lovely evening, guys. See you next time.